pledge will be led by the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Johnson.
I'm here this morning just to address education. How do we know? Because the people have told us so. We represent the ideal way to alleviate the shortages is by ensuring that children of all races and both genders receive the basic grounding in science and mathematics that will prepare them to pursue careers as scientists, engineers, and technologists. Is it not time, then, for America to grow morally? For those who fear to answer this question, I will answer it for them. The time is now.
Now, more than ever, what happens in Washington impacts us here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Your Congresswoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson, will help you understand what goes on inside the federal government and share perspectives from today's leading policymakers and opinion leaders. And now, your Congresswoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Hello, and welcome to this week's Capitol Report. My guest today is Alan Korn. He is Director of Public Policy and General Counsel at Safe Kids Worldwide. And he joined Safe Kids Worldwide in 1994 after practicing law in St. Louis for several years. He's a graduate of Indiana University, and he received his law degree from Washington University. Unintentional injury is the #1 cause of death for children in the United States. And today, Mr. Korn and I are going to discuss child safety. And he has brought a number of visual aids to give all of us the most up-to-date information about how to keep our children and grandchildren safe. Let me welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me, Congresswoman.
And I'm very, very excited to hear about all of these toys and other useful items, and how you will instruct our public to deal with them.
Sure. You know, your introduction was right on spot. I mean, the vast majority of Americans don't realize that the #1 killer of children in this country is accidents. It's not cancer, it's not diabetes, it's not obesity, it's not violence, all important issues and deserve attention, both here in Congress and in communities. But the most likely way a child's going to end up in an emergency room, or worse yet, a little morbid, in a coffin, is by an accidental injury. So it's important to get these messages out so parents and governments can adapt their behaviors and start preventing these things from happening.
Good. Are you ready to tell us about some of these?
Sure. Boy,
individually?
There's lots here to talk about, but I guess one way to kind of approach it is by way of priority, and there is no doubt that the most dangerous thing we do with our children every single day is put them in cars. In fact, that's the most dangerous thing for all Americans. However, there are ways to make that traveling safety better, and one of the best ways is by way of a car seat, using it every single time. And this is one of them right here. There's actually 3 different car seats here, Congresswoman, and each one is for a different use and a different child, depending on the age. In fact, anytime you get in a car, you should ask yourself, as it relates to children, what's the right type of seat my child should be in? This is an infant seat for the youngest of children, ages about 0 to a little bit over 1 year old. When you take them out of the hospital, you've just had your baby, the infant car seat is the way to go. The one seat right here, and we'll talk about them in a little bit more specificity, is a convertible or forward-facing child safety seat. Basically, within reason, that age between 1 and 4 years old. Not quite. I mean, every child's a little different, but generally that's the way you want to go. And finally, right here, is the booster seat. And that's for the child who is, again, generally 4 to 8 years old. And, they're worth talking about. This youngest child in this infant seat, it's very important to have children ride in the back seat. That's the safest place in the car. You don't want a child in a rear-facing seat, especially in the front seat of a car, with the child's head in front of an active airbag.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because an active airbag, when it deploys, it's going to hit the child in the head, in the head first. So you really want to get the child in the back seat, because airbags are a a safety device for adults, but can be and have been dangerous to children, especially children who are improperly restrained. So you really want to watch that in this particular instance. The booster seat is important for those older kids because adult seat belts are called adult seat belts for a reason. They're for adults. So the booster seat kind of like works. I'm a small adult. I was a small kid. I used to sit on a telephone book in a restaurant to kind of reach the table. I don't know if you experienced that in your life. I certainly did. This works the same way. It boosts the child up so that the adult seatbelt fits properly on the child. So, and it basically looks like this. If the seatbelt goes across the neck or the stomach, that seatbelt is not fitting that child properly. What you want is a seatbelt that goes across the chest, that's right, and across the hips. So you've got the big bones and the strong parts of the body that can absorb the crash. And that's, you know, a crash has a lot of energy to it. And that's the most important thing to remember.
So just putting one across the mid part of the body here is just not enough for children.
No, in fact, you know, it can be dangerous. I mean, it's not just enough to have kids restrained in the car. You want them properly restrained. And for the adult seatbelt, that booster seat is the way to go. And in fact, Congresswoman, something you may be interested in, many states in this country have booster seat laws that require these type of seats for children. Texas is one of the few that doesn't. Now, it's not a federal issue, it's a state issue, but maybe those that are your constituents that are seeing this show should be talking to their state legislatures, say, how come we're one of, I think it's 5 or 6 states that don't require booster seats for those older kids as a transitional safety device? So that, you know, your constituents should get involved, let their state legislators know. Maybe you could make a few phone calls, use your influence to say, hey, come on, let's get on this, let's catch up with the rest of the nation and protect our kids.
Okay. Well, that is certainly something to, because it's clear that it's not a law now, because I've never seen one in use. Now, I'm not saying that some parents don't use them. I have not seen one in use. And this goes up to about to the point of which they can sit without needing to be elevated.
That's right, with it when the adult seatbelt fits them properly. This is that transition. What we see is a lot of children. You've probably seen this type of seat.
Yes.
You know, the forward-facing seat is they graduate from this seat and go right to an adult seat belt. That's what you don't want. You want to leave at about age 4. Again, it depends on the child. Age 4 for this forward-facing seat, and then go to the booster seat to help you transition into that adult seat belt. So important. And a law in Texas would help. You'd see more of them if you have a good, well-constructed law that requires people to use them. And for our kids, I think it's worth it.
Yes, because as a result, kids stay in these car seats a lot longer than 4 years old, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, the cars are basically made for adults, although there's lots of safety devices in them that apply to children. You really want to use these aftermarket products in combination with the safety devices in your car to protect you. And that's an important concept. And every time you get in the car, you buckle up yourself and you buckle up your child.
That's very true. I remember when I had smaller grandkids, I'd get them fastened in first, and then I'd go around and get in the car. And before I could get seated, they said, "Get your seatbelt, Granny, get your seatbelt." So when they're taught that in a young age, they stay with it.
Yeah, it's good role modeling for kids to wear your restraints. I don't know how you got to work this morning. I drove to work. I don't even remember putting on my seatbelt. And that's what you want